Hello and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday, the 17th of September 2017, and I'm feeling a bit better after last week with the cold. It's still there. There's still a little bit there, but I'm shaking it. So hopefully by next week we'll be all okay. Now, we were at the Bases conference yesterday, and we did our little talk. It went well, Steve, didn't it?
It went very well. We got a great reaction from the audience, actually, and a few people that were in the audience did come up to us and congratulate us, even though I was a little bit on the nervous side, but, you know, seemingly it didn't show too much, so.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah. So it will be out on DVD for the people who didn't make it, eventually, when they get around to editing, because there's a lot of work that went on with it. And we are going to be at the Open Mind conference down in Waterford in March next year. So for people who missed us at the Bases conference, we're going to be down in Waterford, and we're going to be doing a talk down there in Waterford. Right, now, our guest on tonight is a chap called Winston Shrout. And also what we're going to do is we're going to get Thomas on as well, Thomas Williams, because Thomas has some information regarding the attempted bombing in London. What happened the other day, and well, again, it's a false flag. Apparently, one of the girls that was recognised is somebody that was known. I think that's the information you might have. But we'll talk to Thomas later on, and he'll give us an update maybe on the hurricane as well, on what's happening over there in Florida. Because there seems to be a bit of chaos going on over there as well. So we will get Winston and Thomas on later on, but as usual we have a few things to talk about and discuss. Before we do that, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Okay, communication channels this evening.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Yes, you can contact us through the OYM chat room and log on to oymradio.com. You will see the link there for the chat room. You can log in there. A big hi to everyone who's already logged in. We also monitor PIR, that's the peoplesinternetradio.com. The chat room over there for questions. Also, big hi to everyone logged in and listening this evening. We also have on our own website, we have links to the usuals, to anti-social media, Facebook, Twitter, to Skype, to the email, and to the YouTube channel. And we do have the email info@oymradio.com. If you would like to drop us a quick email, it doesn't have to be your life story, just a quick one-liner, just to say that you've heard the show, or maybe that you attended the conference, or whatever it may be, and just fire it off to us there. We do like getting those emails. We also have for your viewing or your listening pleasure on the website as well, a link for the TuneIn Radio. The application there down the bottom of the website, down the bottom of the page, you will see the link there. You can stick it on your iPhone, your smartphone, or your PC, your laptop, or all those fancy schmancy devices, and you can listen to us 24 hours, 7 days a week on the go.
Brilliant, Steve. Okay, as usual, just a couple of things before I bring the guest in. We sent out an email there to the supporters group, and we're still waiting on some replies back from people regarding the platform that they'd like to hook up and communicate to each other on. So if you could actually send us a reply on your suggestions as to what platform you think we should use for setting up communication and talking to each other, by all means send us in an email and let us know, and that'd be fantastic. Steve?
Yes. Okay. Right, sorry. I was a little bit way behind there, preoccupied doing something else, although I should be doing this. IrishMirror.ie, obscene payoff for failed Garda Chief Noreen O'Sullivan, but no cash to help sick kids, it says. Failed Garda Commissioner Noreen O'Sullivan and useless Irish Water boss John Tierney walk away with massive payoffs both, but the state refuses to pay for drugs to help sick children walk. The useless former Irish Water boss pockets just €600,000. The failed Garda chief gets €270,000, yet the state can't find a mere €800,000 to save two kids from a dreadful disease. News that John Tierney, who paid consultants $50 million when managing director of the hated utility Irish Water, walked away with almost $600K last year, is beyond obscene. We then learned that Finance Minister Paschal Donoghue didn't waste a minute in signing off on the massive lump sum for outgoing Garda Chief Noreen O'Sullivan to go with her $90K annual pension. It's not that these individuals have failed in their respective former roles, it's just that they walk away with bags of cash after making a complete balls of their jobs. In Miss O'Sullivan's case, she leaves behind a demoralised, scandal-ridden force facing up to 24 separate inquiries and investigations into fraud, money laundering and claims of smear campaigns against whistleblowers.
So there you go. You know, it's a cesspit of corruption. The government and the actual departments around that. And it's just incredible that it's so blatant and so in your face that they do that, and then, you know, they'll just say, well, what are you going to do about it? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the solutions are. It's just disgraceful. Of
course, I'm sure whoever takes over from Miss O'Sullivan will obviously he or she will just be as bad.
It'll be the same thing. Right, okay, mailonline.co.uk, they said that convicted, now this was in the UK, but, you know, more than likely it'll be over here as well. Convicted drug users and thieves will be allowed to join police. Rules relaxed in bid to lure minorities, and London is already recruiting criminals. So in London they're already doing it. Convicted criminals will be allowed to join the police on the plans to relax strict entry rules that critics fear will undermine standards. For the first time, candidates will be considered if they have convictions, cautions or fines for offences likely to include possession of cannabis or shoplifting. Well, you know, I don't have a problem with possession of cannabis because, you know, cannabis is not really a drug. But other crimes like shoplifting and stuff like that, I think that should be taken into account. You know, we know that the forces are bad enough and they have the fair share of bad apples in the barrel. But this is just going to add more to it. It's just unbelievable that they're planning to do this. But, you know, what can you do? And if you want to read more about that, you go to the mailonline.co.uk and they have a big article on it there. Steve, how's your week?
So they're hiring convicted criminals. So we've been doing that over here in the government for years.
Yeah, there's a whole load of them in there, isn't there? Yeah.
Anyway, my week, not much happening in my week, to be totally honest. The highlight, the absolute pinnacle of my week was yesterday between the hours of, I think it was about 11:45 and 12:45 p.m. Well, a.m. to p.m., sorry. When we were at the conference doing our bit on stage, we had the presentation. Alan and I worked on a presentation. Alan done the donkey end of the work, I have to say. He put together a fantastic presentation. Everyone that was there, I'm sure, well, we did speak to some people and they did say that the presentation was very, very easy to follow. And some people actually came up and said, you know, they kind of weren't really aware of the waking up process per se, but after the presentation and the lovely graphics that they were, and they now had the tools to go and educate and open up other minds, and when obviously relation to friends and family and workmates and colleagues and what have you. So we had a fantastic time, met a lot of lovely, absolutely fantastic people. And actually, when it was over, we were actually getting ready to leave. And a gentleman, I don't know the gentleman's name. I haven't seen him before. I don't know if I'll see him again. He may or may not be listening to the live show or the podcast, but he did come up and he spoke with me for approximately 1 minute. He did ask in relation to the geoengineering climate change. And he asked, you know, do we believe that this is actually happening? I said, of course we do. We know that a lot of the weather modification techniques and, you know, apparel or paraphernalia has been around for a long time. And we do believe that it is getting used. And also chemtrailing, we have some, you know, a lot of information relating to that and saying that it is going on and it is what it says on the tin and that it's not contrails. The gentleman did say to me, he said, I can't say too much, he says, but I have been told to tell you in relation to weather modification, keep digging. I asked him, could he elaborate on that? He said, no, just keep digging. And I said, well, should we be digging in the direction that we're digging now, or should we be looking somewhere else? And he said, just keep digging. So obviously, we're obviously on the right path anyway. So I'd like to thank the gentleman. I don't know his name, but thanks very much anyway. Yeah, a lot of great speakers at the conference over the 3 days. We did kind of rub shoulders with a few of those yesterday, and I have to say it was a pleasure to meet them. It was all very relaxed, and there was nothing, there was no one kind of going around with the attitude, I'm better than you, or, there was nobody bowing down to anybody. Everyone was just there and had a great time. So, yeah, great, absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to the one now in March already. That's it. There you go. How's yours?
No, that was it was good. We had a great chat, and for people that couldn't make it, it will be coming out on DVD apparently, and then you'll be able to see it there. And it's very rare to see us at all, because we don't go out in public. But we just felt that something had to, this talk that we do about the waking up process and the fluid belief system, we find very important, and it's giving people the solutions. But it's not just about being aware, it's about being self-aware. And this is what we were talking about yesterday, about being self-aware and helping people to understand how the mind works. So if you do want to wake people up, then there's a process that you can apply, and that's what we talked about yesterday. And we've mentioned it on the show before, and people are pretty familiar with it, I'm sure, if you're a regular listener. Anyway. Right, okay, before we bring Winston in, just one thing I'd like to say on my list is that I would like to get a core group of people together, if possible. If you're living in the local area in County Meath, it'd be good to get a group of people together to start kind of looking at dismantling certain government departments, say like the NCT monopoly. I mean, apparently as far as I know, no one company can offer just one service. You cannot monopolise the markets. Like in the UK, when you get an MOT done, you can go to multiple garages to get the MOT done. But in Ireland, there's only one company that does it, and that's the NCT. And as far as I'm concerned, that's illegal regarding the commercial markets in doing that. It should be open to competition, but it's not over here. And I reckon that's not allowed. So maybe that's one of the things that we'd start looking at. So, if a group of people wanted to get together and just have a bit of fun with that and challenging the system, I'd be up for that. If you want to send an email into info@oymradio.com, and you live near enough in the local area, excuse me, the old cold's still there, it's hanging on, then obviously send us an email, and then we'll see what we can do from there. Right, okay. Now, our guest is a chap called Winston Shroud. We did get an email from one of our listeners asking us if we could get Winston on the show, and Winston kindly obliged, and he said he'd come on the show and we'd have a chat with us. So before we bring Winston in, we're going to give you a breakdown of his bio. Steve.
Yes, Winston Shroud is an educator, author, researcher and lecturer focusing on the history, origins and foundational concepts related to commerce. After graduating from college with a degree in psychology with little hope of getting a paying job, he supported himself and his family by working as a carpenter in the construction industry. For the most part, he enjoyed the work he was doing, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he had another true calling. He began to notice that in his daily interactions with the world of commerce, there were many inconsistencies and contradictions. Winston is a lifelong student, and the more knowledge he gained, the more he saw that there was a true need for a library of commercial education materials. He created solutions in commerce to provide people the tools they need to understand and navigate a complicated commercial world with educational material and solutions that are dubiously absent from the standard curriculums of today.
Fantastic. Loads of information there. Good evening, Winston. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Can you hear me okay?
We can. That's fantastic. You're nice and loud this end. That's brilliant. Now, Winston, obviously you have a wealth of knowledge and experience there, with the years that you've been around and watching what's going on. And one of the things that we did want to talk to you about was the whole economic climate at the moment, what's going on in the world, the petrodollar and all that kind of stuff. And I know you have an interest in the commercial side of things from a financial point of view. So give us your take on what you're watching and what you're seeing happening with the markets, because obviously we had the crash in 2008, and we're 10 years, near enough 10 years ahead of that, 9 years, and there's big talk about another crash going to happen, which is going to be, 10 times worse than what happened in 2008. What's your take on what's happening with the markets and what's happening globally?
Well, I prefer to use perhaps different words than are commonly used about these situations. For instance, you talk about, or the popular word is to use the word crash. I don't use that word. I use the word correction. Right. And so the process of what's going on planetarily all over the planet is a financial correction. And so we're having to do away with some of the old methods. You mentioned the petrodollar. The petrodollar is dead. So you can write that in your history, but the petrodollar is dead. But as we start to talk about the elements of change, what you're seeing is corrections in the way things have been done, and perhaps the introduction of totally new concepts in some areas. Now, perhaps many of your listeners are aware of a term called Nesara or GESARA. Is that term familiar to you?
Yeah, we've mentioned it on the show, and we've been told by good information and good intel that that's never going to happen.
Well, they're absolutely incorrect.
Okay.
They're absolutely incorrect, because this is a part of the correction. Now, this correction is necessary in order for us to move forward into other elements of our progress on the whole planet. It seems that many times that people become just a bit short-sighted, and they don't look far enough into the future or so forth. And so in consequence of that, they might not see, what the possibilities are and so forth. But let me just express, GESARA is alive and well, and it has to do with the global financial reset. Now, this has been going on for quite a while. There's been a lot of work that's been done on that. And perhaps, I know we have limited time here to speak of these matters, but if your listeners want to go for a fuller explanation of these changes and so forth, I recently did several interviews to put these things together, but it's something called the Goldfish Report. And if you go and start to look at some of those, I do a complete explanation of this reset, how it came about, what the elements are, and what we can expect for the future. So, like I say, we have a relatively short time here. For instance, some of those interviews were 2 hours long.
Okay.
So it takes a very long time to set a basis to make some of the conversation and so forth. And then, like I say, for a more full explanation for that, your listeners may want to go on the internet, look up what's called the Goldfish Reports, and then listen particularly to the one, if you're interested in that particular thing. Anyway, the one where I talk about the revaluation of currencies. Okay.
Well, we had a guest, Winston, on called Gordon James Gananoto, and we mentioned this to Gordon James, and he said that he gave up on it because he was waiting 25 years, and it just seems that and even myself and Steve, when we heard about this, and they said, it's going to be ready on Wednesday, and then it doesn't happen, then it's going to be Friday, and it doesn't happen, and this has been going on and on and on. And we kind of gave up on it because we just said, obviously, there's something going on here, because every time they go to say it's ready to be released, it's never released. And you're on this emotional roller coaster,
Well, one of the problems that confront many of us is the concept of linear time. And that is, because we're involved in a planet that spins around, and goes around the sun and all these kind of things, we start to mark things in a linear concept. And linear time was created simply for commerce. But when you start to talk about major changes, so forth, then you need to learn how to evaluate time in what's called event time. In other words, one event will happen. That will allow another event to happen. And then another event, another event. So one of the drawbacks that we have, as mere mortals, if I can use that, is that we try to evaluate what's happening in linear time, and it simply does not work.
Okay. And the GESARA, Nesara funds, where are they coming from? All this, because obviously there seems to be an awful lot of money going to be coming down the pipeline. Where is it coming from? Okay, and let me dispel that idea, because again, people are evaluating these things that are to transpire only in money. Now that's wrong. That's wrong altogether. In respect to where is the quote-unquote money coming from, you have to go back to World War II and what happened after that, and we don't have time for all that, but there were huge funds created known as the Heritage Funds. And those were done through the use of the gold in the collateral accounts, and they introduced the trading programs, not roll programs, and all those kind of things. But and those heritage funds have so many zeros in it, you would run your pen out before you wrote all the zeros. Now that's one fund. That fund right there is controlled, and it in fact has been signed off on, has been released. The funds are flowing through that, waiting for payout in certain respects, but in respect to Nesara or global, or, GESARA, much of that wealth, notice I didn't say money, much of that wealth is coming from the Saint Germain Trust, or what's known as the Foundation Divine. So it's not just about money, folks. There are other elements for release which will alleviate many of the problems on the planet. For instance, what is the value of money compared to a machine that will cure diseases? Yeah. Which would you rather have, the money or get your cold fixed? If you see what I mean. Well, I know. I've seen a couple win the lottery. I think they won about 4 or 5 million, and because the man's wife was sick, he said he was happy to give the 5 million back if he could just have her health back. And as you say, exactly. Yeah, health is your wealth, Now, as part of this GESARA concept, many of the technologies, like for free energy and those things, and health issues and so forth, those things have been suppressed. But with GESARA, those things will in fact be released, and we will start to produce the technology and so forth that are necessary for a fuller life. And it does not necessarily imply the use of money. People need to get their minds off the money end of it. Yeah, I think people are actually looking at the money side because of the way things are at the moment in the economy. And that's they're obviously just focusing on that side. So when is this linked into the dinars and the dongs and all that kind of stuff? And when do you think it's going to happen? What's the news on that? In some places on the planet, apparently that has already occurred. It was going from east to west, and so the first redemption of those kinds of currencies apparently was starting in the Pacific Rim, moving their way towards the west, and so certainly the United States will be the last in that respect. Otherwise, they felt like that perhaps if the United States redeemed their currencies first, it would give them an unfair advantage in the commercial markets and so forth. So as I understand it, the redemption of those currencies that you were referring to would proceed from east to west, and apparently has already started. So we know there's global elites controlling the planet and doing what they're doing with chemtrails and poisons and everything else. Some of them are. All right. So who's running? Who's the good guys doing the Nesara stuff? Who are they? Well, certainly what's known as the Chinese elders,
and we call them Chinese elders basically because that's where they live on the planet for the most part. But you'll find that actually most of those are actually people who have come from inner Earth, in particular Agartha.
Right.
Does that
okay.
surprise you?
No, we've heard about this before, and apparently there was supposed to be somebody from the inner Earth doing a conference in New York there. I think
that was not. That was a phony.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay, we didn't see it. We just heard people, mentioning it on the social media. But I mean, that's all we heard about it.
But in regards to what's happening on the planet, we have a combination of elements and so forth that are working together. In particularly, what's known as the Galactic Federation, which is basically comprised of some of the Pleiadians, Andromedans, people from Sirius, Orion Council, Light, and so forth. So they are assisting, but also some of the main assistance is actually coming interdimensionally from the Ascended Masters, principally Saint Germain and Kuan Yin.
Okay, and so, does the dragon families have any involvement in this?
Some.
Okay. But
the dragon family, and there's many dragon families, so they do have some participation, but the real financial power is not with the dragon families. The real financial power is with the control of the collateral accounts, the heritage funds, and Foundation Divine type sources.
Right, okay. And obviously with all the dates that they've, is supposed to happen and it's not happening and it's supposed to happen, and this has been going on for a long time. And you're saying now that part of the rollout has started to happen. And it doesn't just involve money, it involves technology. And is this why we're seeing a lot of free energy devices and a free energy technology being disclosed and people, beginning to see it?
Yes. Yeah, see, again, because we have been conditioned to measure our life in terms of money. And that's not right. Certainly money is a part of that, but again, the question is, would you rather have your health or $1 million?
Yeah, well,
I'll choose health.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, put it this way: $1 million is no good to you if you're in a desert and you're dying of thirst. You'd give it away. It's all relative. So do you have any timelines or timescales when we will see because people are going to be asking from a financial point of view, because everybody's struggling, because all countries are struggling. All of us are. We're all kind of fed up with the way the system is and the way it's being controlled. And I've been in one or two discussions on Facebook with people, and they're talking about the GESARA and Nesara coming, and it's going to happen. I've obviously been running a radio show. We get both sides. We have intel from the other side saying it's not going to happen and never going to happen. And then obviously people like yourself coming on saying it is going to happen. So the only way we're going to find out is that if it does happen, then great. If it doesn't happen, well then, that's just the way we're going to have to kind of view things.
Well, let me discuss for a moment asset. Let me discuss currency, or what people call money. And that is, back in the 1930s, when there was huge changes happening on the planet. And if you go back to the era about 1928, there had been what was called the Plan of the Experts, which had been created so as to facilitate a planetary financial system. And that started to be implemented around 1928 and going into the early 1930s. But what was necessary at that point? And this necessity was because of the amount of people on the planet. In other words, they had to reduce the use of gold or substance in commerce in order to facilitate the gross number of people on the planet. In other words, the amount of gold available would not allow commerce to progress to accommodate all the people. So they devised a plan. So instead of using substance such as gold or silver or so forth, they devised a system which is known as negotiable instruments. Now, negotiable instruments come in two forms, and we don't really have time to give us, a mini class on negotiable instruments. But from that, the currency that became the most popular, let me put it that way, the currency that became the most popular is what's known as a debt currency. And so in order to facilitate the use of the debt currency, then all of the countries had to go into a condition known as bankruptcy. So to facilitate the use of a debt currency, technically the various countries had to incorporate in order to make this system work. Perhaps the last country to go that way was actually the United Kingdom, because they had the British pound sterling, which at that time, what was the reserve currency on the planet. But in order to facilitate this new system, British pound sterling had to be removed from that position, and in its place, the Federal Reserve note became the world's reserve currency. And I mean, I'm not explaining everything, but I'm just trying to give a little history here. Now, at this point in our history, you were talking about the petrodollar and all that kind of thing, which is the U.S. dollar. That's what it's Federal Reserve note. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Now, so with the system that has been regenerated for, let's say, let's just say the last 10 years. They've been working on this a long time. Because if you go to what's known as the Basel Agreements for International Banking, it got to the point when they got down to the phase called Basel III. Basel III required any national currency to be substance-backed in order to be internationally viable. Now, so all of the countries have been racing around trying to secure gold in particular, but not only gold, as I'll explain in a moment, but they have all been racing around to try to obtain substance backing for their own national currencies so as to be commercially viable. Now, the one which has arisen to the top, which is in fact the new world's reserve currency, is in fact the Chinese yuan, which is in fact gold-backed. Now, let's just say 4 years ago. I'm not really sure on the dates, I can't hardly remember. But in any event, it was thought that what they would do was they would do a hierarchical evaluation of each nation's currency as to its relative value to any other nation. Now, one of the reasons why they did this was to take the central banks out of the equation. The central banks on the planet, which are all privately owned banks, have simply been raping the planet.
Yeah.
Raping the countries. Okay. So what they did, they went through to each particular national currency and they evaluated it based on, for instance, gross national product, in the ground assets, above ground assets such as timber, water, whatever. And anyway, after evaluating each country by country, they created a hierarchy as to the relative value of a nation's currency. As mentioned, the Chinese yuan came out on top. Now, in between that, I think there was something like maybe as high as well over 190 currencies that had to be evaluated. And so in consequence of that, then they established a hierarchy in regards to the relative value of a nation's currency, and they fixed it in place so that the central banking system could not manipulate those currencies. So our hope was, in some of the operations that we had done, because I was involved in some of that, the hope was that the countries would nationalize the central bank if they thought they actually needed one, and they do not. But in any event, to help, to make these corrections and so forth, these things were put in place. Now, when that hierarchy of relative values of currencies came into place, it was found that some currencies actually moved up. So let's say at one point, they were rated, let's say, at number 50. And then after they did a true evaluation of that nation's currency, instead of being 50, let's say it moved up to 40, number 40 on the list. Okay. So what does that mean about the relative value of the currency that was in existence already? It meant that it had more value than it previously had. Now that's what this that's what this currency redemption is all about, is to go, for those countries or for individuals or for whomever who have invested in those currencies, let's say when it was 50, now all of a sudden it's at 40, which means that it has more value, and so they can go and redeem those currencies at a higher relative value than they previously had. The typical currencies we're talking about are the Iraqi dinar, the Vietnamese dong, Indian rupee, and the Zimbabwe bond. So those things are being dealt with at some point shortly. I can't imagine actually it's got me upset they haven't gotten it done already. But in any event, we're going to see, due to the revaluation, we're going to see currencies that are going to be redeemed at much higher values than they previously had been. Does that kind of make sense?
It makes sense. But I'm just curious why it's been going on for so long, and why all of a sudden they're convinced that, it's going to happen on Wednesday, or it's going to happen on Friday, and then all of a sudden it doesn't happen. Let me ask you this question. Are you old enough to remember D-Day?
No, I'm not that old.
Okay. If you go back in history, when they were planning to invade Europe out of England, they had to camouflage their efforts to prevent the Germans from fortifying certain positions. And so they sent out huge amounts of disinformation, and it worked. Okay, so that's what happens on D-Day. Same thing here. To deal with the cabals, to deal with the what we would call the evil empire, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
They had to camouflage their activities. So in many instances, they would say, well, we're going to do such and such a thing on a certain date. And what they were doing was flushing out the opposition, because they didn't know who everybody was.
Mm.
And so they would flush them out. They would take care of that. Then they say, okay, well, we couldn't do it then, so we're going to do it, here 2 months from now. Same thing. They were flushing out the opposition. Now, at this point, it appears that most of that opposition has been identified and eliminated. Otherwise, if it had not been eliminated, they'd simply be fighting forever and a day over the money.
Mm.
So, people ought not be discouraged because of the linear times, that we're talking about here. Again, if you can start to think about event time, it may perhaps make a lot more sense to you. So, on a certain date, Eisenhower and all the ones there in England would say, well, we're going to do such and such. And then you get the Germans to move their troops at a certain place. And then they give them another fake. And then they move their troops somewhere else. It's the same thing.
Can I ask you, the GESARA and Nesara, is that linked in any way to the collateral accounts?
No, no. The collateral accounts is something different. I can discuss that in a moment. But no, the Nesara elements are basically coming out of the, let's call it the St. Germain Trust, Foundation Divine.
And do you know what, you know, when this finally comes out or starts rolling out, what are people expected to see? What will, you know, will they see funding in their bank accounts? You know, are we talking about from a financial point of view? We're aware of the free energy technology and the knowledge coming out about certain technologies for health and everything else. But obviously, the people are interested because, as I say, they're struggling. Will they wake up one day, look at their bank account, and all of a sudden there's going to be a certain element of, you know, thousands or millions in their bank account?
I would seriously doubt that. If you want to know that, see, there's about, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 main elements of Nesara. And you can either go on to the internet and find those, or if you can't find them, simply send me an email. I'll send them that information. But there's several elements in there that will bring prosperity to the planet. Again, I did not say money. I said prosperity.
Okay, because obviously if people are thinking, because there are people out there that are thinking that they're going to wake up one day and have a few million in the bank account, and to be honest with you, from a financial point of view, through society, that would devastate society as everybody woke up. And I know it sounds strange for some people, but if everybody woke up and all of a sudden they had 5 million in their bank account, that would destroy society or have a massive impact on society. Because, you know, the whole wheels of society would just grind to a halt. Because people would be saying, well, I'm not going to work anymore, I don't need to work. And then the whole system would collapse and have a major problem. So, to me, that doesn't make sense. And as you said, it's not necessary that's going to happen. If there was a case that the funding came down the line where organizations were set up to then, because I'm a big believer, and I always say this, you know, you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he'll eat every day. So you don't give him the fish, you give him the tools so he can go and fish.
Yeah, that's a good concept. That's a good way to explain it. But again, as you'll recall, when I started to explain this, Sarah, I did not relate it to money. I related it to prosperity. Now, think about this concept. What if the people who work are allowed to keep all of the earnings of their work instead of having it taken away in taxes? Would that bring prosperity to people? The answer is yes, it would.
Yeah.
So certainly one of the main provisions of Nesara is getting rid of the incompatible taxing that has resulted from the use of this debt currency that we have found ourselves having to deal with. So what has happened was, going back to the debt currency again and use of it, it apparently became the currency of choice of the governments, because using the debt currency system, they were able to control the population. Now, anything like that eventually is going to fail, and it has to be not crashed, it has to be corrected. And that's what the Basel agreements are all about, requiring that every country's currency would be asset backed. Now we're getting past the debt currency, and now we're getting into an asset currency, which will reverse a lot of things in the way that we do our commerce. So that's so very important for people to understand, is that these currencies that have been, such as the euro, my God, what a worthless currency that was.
I know.
So anyway,
well, it was rolled out, and they knew it was going to fail. So it's still going to fail.
I was in Ireland in 2009. I mean, I come over. We were going to do a seminar in London, and so I was in Ireland when in 2009 when this thing was pretty hotly debated, and so I kind of watched it over the years. But the euro was a complete fabrication, had nothing behind it. And it had to fail, just like the Federal Reserve notes eventually did. So with Basel III now, that's going to be corrected, and then whatever country you're in, whatever currency that you're using, will be required to be asset backed, or you can't use it for international trade.
Well, we have a couple of questions for you there, Winston, that have come in on our chat room. But before we go over there, how long do you think this process is going to take? I mean, with the people that you know and the information that you have, are we talking 2 years, 5 years, 10 years?
No, it's all done except for the political end of it, because we still have a few complications on the political end. Other than that, the banking, the currencies, and all these things, they are all completed, in place. We're just waiting for all these politicians to get their act straightened out so that we can move forward. And if they don't act quickly, they will be removed.
Okay, well, that's good news. Okay, we're going to pass you off to Steve there. Steve has a few questions from our listeners. Steve.
Yeah, Winston, just in relation to the euro, well, I know like it was bound to fail and all, but at this moment in time, from the man on the ground point of view, I mean, because we have Northern Ireland, which is obviously part of the UK, and anyone who's going up past the border at the moment into Northern Ireland, they're actually getting a great exchange rate on the euro, so it's kind of making it worthwhile going up there to do their shopping. But if the euro, if and when the euro crashes, I mean, are we going to go back to the pound, or do you reckon there's going to be some other currency that's just going to just creep up out of the woodwork, and we're going to be forced to use that? What do you think is going to happen?
Again, you used the word crashed again, and I told you stop using that word.
Oh, correction. Sorry.
Okay. No individual is going to lose any money when the corrections are made. That's what these funds are being released for, is to guarantee that none of the people will be harmed. And so if you have euros, if you have pounds, if you have whatever, wherever you're at, what you have in what you call money will be redeemed in whatever new currency that you're, or a renewed currency. Folks, people, you're not going to lose anything. We're guaranteeing all that with the heritage funds. Okay.
And in relation to like the bigger plan, I suppose, in relation to commerce, do you think, well, Paddy is wondering, do you think, will the elite try to get rid of commerce as we know it?
Okay, instead of calling the elite, call them the defeat. They have been defeated.
Okay.
They're not the elite anymore, they're the defeated.
Right, so...
Now most of those, what you're calling elite, were actually being influenced by negative influences. I mean, maybe some of you've heard some of the words about reptilians and archons and all that business.
That's right,
yes, yeah.
Those have all been defeated, and those individuals, those people who are still acting like that, it's because they were conditioned to act like that. They do not have any support behind them.
So what you're saying is the head has been taken off the snake, and the middle managers are running around like headless chickens with nobody to tell them what to do.
That would be a good description.
Okay.
But what about the Rothschilds? Where do they come into this? I mean, are they still a powerful corporation, or whatever you want to call them?
They're trying to figure out some way to get out of this deal and still save their hide.
But obviously, I mean, from what you say, they're not going to lose any wealth or
currency.
Oh, yes,
either. They are. Oh, yes, they are. There had been certain deals made for immunities. You know, if you'll simply withdraw and stop causing problems, you can keep what wealth you have, but you're not going to control the wealth of the planet anymore. So initially they made those agreements, and then they backed out of it and tried to make another run at it. But at this point right here, they are not trusted for anything they say. They are in danger of losing everything.
So we don't have to worry about the Rothschilds.
Stop worrying about them people.
Okay. Can I just ask as well? Is that another question there you have for him?
You walk away.
Okay, Winston, do you feel that there's actually more than just one faction here? So instead of saying the elites, there's actually about probably 5 different factions who are infighting with each other, trying to control each other and control the system.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, and where are we at with them 5 factions? Are they all in the same boat together and struggling, and they're being defeated, or are they trying everything they can to still run the system, even though they know they're losing?
Okay, if you understand the sociopathic or psychopathic mind, then you would understand their actions, because they act just exactly like psychopaths. Yeah. Even when a deal is made to them, they don't have enough common sense to take the deal, take what they got, go live a life, and go away. But they're fools. They're bona fide fools, and the reason I say they're fools is because they act just like psychopaths. They won't give up until they're dead.
That's right. We were told...
And that might happen.
Yeah, well, we were told, and maybe this is a good analogy, Winston, we were told by one of our guests that, which is what he was told, is that if there's a queue of people in a chip shop and they wanted to get to the top of the queue, they throw in a grenade, kill everybody just to get to the top. That's how psychopathic they are.
Yeah, it could happen that way, but we do have the intervention of the Galactics, who are very careful to make sure that nobody does something that would be planetarily destructive. For instance, there ain't nobody going to shoot off a major nuke. Not going to happen. If you go on the internet and see all these whistleblowers and videos where they show that flying craft come in and actually disable nuclear arms. So that's not going to happen. And so the ones who think they had the power because they control nuclear devices and so forth, they don't have that anymore. They have nothing. And then all their underground cities and everything are being rapidly destroyed. I mean, it's all over the internet. There's so much information on the internet now about what's being happened to prevent what you just said about throwing a grenade in a chip shop.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Okay, and what about, because obviously we have to use a lot of discernment, because there's a lot of disinformation out there on the internet as well, and you have to do a lot of research and double check, and obviously speak to people like yourself to get your feedback on what you're hearing and what's going on. And we know the whole North Korea thing is just rhetoric and again propaganda and fear porn. What's your take on Trump? As you're in the States, how do you feel about Trump? What do you think? Is he a good guy, bad guy, or is he being controlled?
Well, he was controlled from the very start. He was actually hired by the Chinese elders to become the president. See, a lot of people don't think here in the United States, but we have not had an elected president since John F. Kennedy. All of our other presidents have been selected by some power.
Yeah.
Now when Mr. Trump was propositioned to take this job, I don't think he wanted it, to be perfectly honest. And even when he was running, he didn't think he would get it. But when all that started, I went and asked I went and asked the Golden Dragon. I went and asked him. I said, who have the elders selected to be president? Is it going to be Trump or Hillary? He said Trump. And so Trump was contracted to do this job. Now as far as I know, he has fulfilled that contract and will soon be replaced. But now we're getting into local politics and stuff, and I don't know how much your viewers there might want to listen to all that.
Well, who would replace Trump if he did? Is he going to step down, or will he be taken out?
No, he'll step down. I mean, they're going to make a great big soap opera out of it, of course, like they always do, because, to feed the national media and stuff. But no, we have, again, it would take me a long time to give this history of how we've come up to our present time.
Yeah.
But right now, the country is technically under the control of the U.S. military. And actually they have been since the Civil War in the 1800s. But in any event, the military has stepped in and they have prepared an interim restored republic. And when Mr. Trump, goes away, however he goes away, then another individual will step forward with the sponsorship of the U.S. military, and then he will effect the provisions of Nesara, one of which is a new and fair election.
So what about the likes of the Hurricane Irma and Jose and what happened in Harvey? And the rumours about people being taken away, the homeless taken away to Fema camps and disappearing. Have you heard all about that? We've been listening to that stuff now for so long. Yeah. I don't think anybody believes that. Right, okay. Well, it's just what we're hearing from our end and on their guests. People have what we're seeing. Well, let me ask you this question. Were any of your guests broadcasted to you from a FEMA camp? No, nobody was broadcasting. I can tell you that now. No, not from a FEMA camp, but it's just little things. I don't know whether you've seen that Fox News report, I think it was Fox News, where the reporter went up to this homeless guy who ended up being a police officer, who was homeless, and he said, I'm not going to the FEMA camps because the Salvation Army and the homeless group that were there were caught killing people. If you believe anything that comes across Fox, CNN, or any of the major media outlets, then you might just as well spend your time, doing a crossword puzzle. Yeah. Well, I mean, we know about the likes of Fox News and CNN and CBS and all these, and even our own Irish stations and the UK stations. But as I say, we're just saying it because we're just wondering what your take is on it. It's all foolishness. That's my take. Right, okay. So so do you think the hurricanes were actually HARP technology and were done on purpose? It may be that they were enhanced by HARP. Yeah. See, the general consensus across the planet is that HARP is under the evil control. It may be and it may not be. So people have to be careful. There's a lot of this. People get into a rut with conspiracy theories. And so, I have used this to measure what I hear. And that is, if something creates fear in people, there's most likely something wrong with it. Most likely. And so when people, talk about HARP, they talk about this, talk about that, hurricanes, tornadoes, or whatever. They have to be real careful that they don't infuse the element of fear into it, because it will cause them to draw an erroneous conclusion about the reality. Okay. Now, yes, there are hurricanes. Yes, there are these storms and everything. But why do we have to say, well, the world's coming to an end, or HARP's doing this, or we got FEMA camps, or we got... That's why I was jokingly asking you, has anybody broadcast to you out of a FEMA camp? Yeah, no. These people are giving these reports, are simply giving reports that they heard probably third or fourth hand. And if there's any truth to it, we don't know. Yeah. Chinese whispers. We don't know there's any truth to it. That's it. Now tell us, as you're kind of aware of the bigger picture and what's going on from a celestial point of view, what's your understanding of Planet X and Nibiru, and all the names that comes with that? Because obviously just talk about that in the media as well, and alternative media. Okay, in any of these reports that you have listened to, has the implication been that people should be in fear? Oh, well, that's the thing. We've given up. There you go. We gave up on that a long time ago, myself and Steve. That's my point. we just see it as information. When people go fear porn, we just say, look, it's just information. Just take it for what it is. Don't get into any fear over it, because we know they love the propaganda. Oh, yeah. So you just think it's just fear porn again, yeah? No, that there are real events happening, but the question is what is the result of those things? That's the question. For instance, we had it's been probably about 2 or 3 years ago,
we had a very near flyby. It was not Nibiru, but it was some major comet or asteroid, which was cloaked by the galactics that actually ripped apart the Archon grid, simply pulled it away from the Earth. And so again, you know, look on the positive side of things. You know, what would happen if we had Planet X or Nibiru or whatever? You know, would it do something good? Would it do something bad? I have a tendency to believe in the future. I believe in people. I believe in the eventual outcome of all these things. And so I do, well, I believe, and I also know that we have friends in the universe, in the galaxy, nearby the Earth, who are assisting and preventing any negative results from some of these things that happen. For instance, we have a lot of earthquakes, volcanoes, and all kinds of things happening on the planet right now. You know, but they're not destructive. They are correcting. They're correcting the tectonic plates so that there won't be major upheavals and to prevent a polar shift and all these kinds of things. So we have a lot of help. We have a lot, cause listen, these Pleiadians and Andromedans and all, they have a huge investment here. We are their cousins.
Okay.
They have a huge investment here, and they're here to protect their family.
Okay. Well, that's okay. That's fair enough. We've more questions for you there, Winston, coming in from our chat room. So, Steve, over to you.
All right.
Yeah, Winston, just some information from I'm guessing it's a newspaper, the Oregonian. It says something here about a federal jury. Finding you guilty, 13 counts of issuing fake financial documents to banks in the US. Can you talk about that? What's happening there?
Well, yeah, it would take a long explanation, but to sum it up this way. People come up to me and say, Winston, we see the federal government has indicted you. And I said, no, that's wrong. I have indicted the federal government. Because that particular situation there is something that actually I instigated. I had to draw out certain elements to cause certain corrections, and I got most of those corrections in place now at this point. But yeah, I mean, you can read the newspaper and see all those kind of things, but they do not accurately report on the nature and all, because when this is over with, they will not report on the results of it.
Yeah, well, that's it. They only report on what they want to report on. It looks like you have a lot of questions there, Steve. Do you?
No, that's just one. Well, I do have questions. That's just the article.
Oh, right, okay. Do you want to skip?
The news, we'll skip past that.
We'll shoot one.
Yeah, just in relation to just kind of backtracking a little bit there. Global warming and geoengineering. We have spoken to a lot of people, Winston.
Sorry.
It sounds like Alan is clapping. He's trying to get a fly. We have heard a lot of information from people kind of on the ground, people in the know, and also pilots as well in relation to the chemtrailing. But obviously, when we speak to people on the street, they don't get it. They say, no, there's no such thing. What do you know about the whole global warming / geoengineering, including the likes of, say, the HARP technology and the chemtrails? Can you give us any update or any new info on that?
Yeah, in relationship to the chemtrails, on global warming, it's a natural phenomenon.
Yeah.
If you listen to the different, scientists and so forth, in our whole solar system, all the planets are in fact warming up. To what end, we're not sure, but I don't believe, certainly in regard to this planet, that is to a detrimental effect. The sun is changing, for whatever reasons, the controllers or the galactics or whoever, but it is changing. And so in regards to warming, it's not because of CO2 emissions, even though those are bad. It's not due to that apparently. And I mean, I even read one report years ago that was, hilarious, where they were claiming that global warming was caused by cattle farts.
Yeah.
Garden parts, yeah.
Yeah. I think we heard that over here as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we did hear too that it is a national phenomenon. It does happen, and those people who are, you know, they're trying to just kind of extract more money out of us with carbon taxes and all, because even they know it's a national thing, but they're just trying to hoodwink the people. And
but isn't it funny about these guys, Winston, that they go around telling everybody about global warming and about our carbon footprint while they're flying around on their private jets to do it?
And driving big vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah, but aside from that, one of the initial reasons for the chemtrails was simply to prevent global warming, because they were spraying some particles, aluminum and so forth, to reflect the sun's rays, so they would not have the impact that they had figured it would happen. Now, since those initial purposes had gone on and on, then certainly other individual or other concerns became involved, and they started to put in harmful things into those things, and that in fact was at the instigation of the Draco reptilians. That was not the government that was doing that. That was the Draco reptilians, and they were funding it, and they were putting harmful diseases, viruses, and all kinds of things into the atmosphere. That part of it certainly is detrimental and should be stopped, and a good part of it has been stopped. But initially, the spraying in the atmosphere was to reflect what they thought was harmful rays from the sun. Did that have a good effect or not? Maybe it did, maybe it don't. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I don't know.
But do you think they were doing that also to terraform the planet?
What do you call terraform?
Well, changing the atmosphere to suit them rather than us, the human race.
There may have been some of that thought process from the Dracos, but the Dracos have been taken under control, so if they had that in mind, it's not going to happen.
Right. Okay. Well, we have about 5 minutes left. So just to kind of sum up, you reckon that we're on the right side of things at the moment globally, and things are beginning to look up, and the cabal and the elite are actually on the downward spiral. Is that your general take on things?
Well, my general take on everything is that we are moving into a renaissance as far as knowledge. We're moving into a prosperity as far as economics. We're moving into an opportunity for people to open their minds and their hearts so that they can conceive of a better world. Now, you know, certainly you've had James Gilliland on your program in times past, and his main message has always been to people, and that is go into your heart, because you have to be heart-centered in order to make progress, you know, to get out of the old modalities and move into the new paradigms. And so I'm giving that same advice, and that is if people will go into their heart, get out of your brain, get into your heart, and when you get into your heart, then you will know the right things that you ought to do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we did the talk there yesterday. We are privileged to go down to Dublin, and we were asked to do a talk, and humbled by it, at the Basis Conference. And the talk that we did was all about the waking up process, and and about, you know, people waking up to how to wake up, and about waking up to what's going on, and the teenage mind, and moving from the teenage mind to the adult mind, which is all part of our growth.
Great. Yeah, you do a good thing when you do that.
Yeah, and that's the way we see it. It's the psychology of how, so we were talking about the psychology of how the mind works, and how the mind deals with the information, and how people treat certain information. And that's, you know, well, the presentation will be available on video. The talk that we did yesterday is going to be on DVD when it's finished. But we really got into the psychology of talking, and I know your background is psychology, and you know what, Winston, I think you're going to have to come on again and do a part 2, because from a psychological point of view, we haven't even got there, and I would love to actually talk to you about the psychology of the waking up process and what we talk about, and get your take on it, and that would be fantastic to touch base with you on that. So maybe just a part 2 in the bag.
Well, we could do that. I'm open to it.
Brilliant stuff, brilliant stuff. Well, listen, a big thank you for coming on the show. Much appreciated. Yeah. That's great information, and we look forward to it. If it happens, that's brilliant. But what we'll do is, maybe in a couple of months' time or so, we'll give you a shout. We'll do a part 2, and we'll get into maybe talk a bit of psychology next time, and talk about the whole waking up process. But a big thank you for coming on. I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve's going to get all your contact details where people can track you down and find your information and see all about you. Steve.
Yeah, Winston, some great information. I know, as Alan said, it's only been a short time, but a lot of information, a lot of ground covered, lots more to cover. So look forward to having you on again. We do have a link to your website there, wssic.info. That's the Winston...
No, .com.
Oh, .com?
Yep.
Okay.
And in particular, if they go to the website, we have several different things. For instance, we have product pages, we have this and that. But also we have a YouTube section that you can sign up for and look at all the different presentations I've made. And when we get this interview done, if you'll contact the information, she'll put your link onto that YouTube section of our website also.
Okay, just to let you know, Winston, you may not know you have two websites. You have .com and you also have .info as well. Both of them bring you to the same place.
Oh, you do? Okay, all right.
Yeah, and we also have the Goldfish Report. We have put that up in the chat room there for
great.
the listeners. Great. So do check out the Goldfish Report. Any other links, or are you on YouTube, Facebook, or where can people find some more information?
Yeah, if you just go to the website and go on to the YouTube section of the website, it'll indicate all of the various interviews and YouTube presentations and so forth that I've done over the past number of years. There's a wealth of information there.
There is certainly. I've checked out the website. There is a lot of information on there. Great information.
Fantastic. Well, Winston, that's fantastic. Again, thank you for coming on. Just stay with us there for a minute. We're just going to go off to a musical break and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and peoplesinternetradio.com.
Okay, we're back. Great information there from Winston Shrout. Do check out his website there, learn more about him. I did pop a link in the chat room there for anyone who's interested. He seems to have had a little run-in with the law, so I do check that out.
Brilliant. Now, we had an impromptu quick chat with Thomas before we went live today in the show, and Thomas has some background information regarding the terror attack, or presumed terror attack in London, plus I think some hurricane information as well. So we said, well, why don't you come on and talk to us and tell us what you found out, because obviously, the whole idea of OYM is to get the information out there, and if Thomas has some good information, why not? Let's get it out there and let people know what's going on. Good evening, Thomas. How are you doing?
I'm fine. How's you two doing? Did you have a good conference yesterday?
Amazing, Thomas. Absolutely amazing.
It was good fun, I mean, the subject matter that we talked about was the waking up process and moving from the teenage mind to the adult mind. And we gave you there was a quick mention of yourself on it, because we recently talked to you about this on the show. So we gave you there's a little plug there. So when the DVD comes out, we'll let people see it. They'll see it and they can have a listen to it. And it's just stuff that we talked about on the show anyway. Educating people about, how the mind works and how to, if you want to wake people up, how to go about doing it in a proper way. And then some people that should never be woken up because they'd be a danger to themselves. So, we'd like to think that people got something from it, and the feedback was very positive anyway. So, all good stuff at the end of the day,
it's nice to see you and Randy Morgans, because Randy's doing a conference in Texas this weekend, getting some recognition, because there's far too many clowns out there on the alternative media, getting publicity for spouting lies and rubbish,
Yeah, well,
I'm pleased for both of you.
Yeah, cheers. No, we're trying to keep it real as much as we can. We try and avoid talking about stuff we don't know a lot about. I mean, what we talk about the waking up process, I've spent years and years and years looking into this, and researching it and reading about it. So I'm comfortable and Steve's comfortable with it. And it's kind of grassroots information. We're not saying there's starships in space and you have to believe us because we can't prove it. We're actually just talking about psychology and human behaviour, and everybody can relate to that, which is nice and easy. And we've been asked to do the Open Mind Conference next year. Now, I'm not saying the people that talk about that stuff, maybe they do have inside intel to say that there are spaceships in space and stuff like that. Maybe they do have the intel, and that's brilliant, but it's not our bag. It's not what we talk about. We kind of, you know, as I say, keep it to the grassroots stuff. But we do have a talk to do next year as well. We've been invited on to do a talk on the Open Minds Conference, thanks to Trevor and the team. And so we're looking forward to that in March next year. If people want to attend that, it's a 3-day conference as well, and we're going to be on the Saturday. But anyway, we've limited time, so let's get cracking, Thomas. What's the info you have regarding London and what happened there?
Well, I'm glad to see that there's people getting onto it more so now, because we're being deluged with these fake crisis actors. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting heartily sick of these events, which are largely based on fakery. And when you've got a well-made-up girl with red hair who's supposed to have just been in a bomb attack with her hair perfect, her face perfect, she's got a bandage around her head, and makeup's perfect, there's nothing, you know, she's just come off a catwalk, and she's allegedly been in a bomb incident. It's also rubbish, you know. They showed the picture of the alleged bomb. There's no fire, there's no scorch mark, nothing. And people are accepting this far too easily. Well, but more and more are now seeing it for what it is. I've mentioned in recent shows that there's 3 people who have been put in the media, the mainstream media, who had the misfortune, in inverted commas, to attend 3 separate crisis events. Now, why aren't those people being arrested? Or why do they always turn up? You know, if you're a detective, you'd want to pull that person in, because how is it are they just that unlucky?
Yeah.
You know, this is the way you've got to think, because if I'm a detective, I'm pulling that person in. I want to question that person. But no, they've been, isn't it unfortunate that this person was involved in 3 terrorist, in inverted commas again, attacks? No, it's not. No, these are the paid actors put forward in the pictures and put forward in the interviews to talk about it. You know, and what they're doing now is spinning the wheel and spinning people's minds. This is the new game, and literally spinning with the hurricanes. So it's one event after the other where people start cottoning on to one event, and then they've spun another one, so the focus goes on to that. I put on THI today. Where's the evidence from the Manchester event? And people, I imagine, we forgot about that. Yes, because you've had 2 London events, and you've had a Barcelona event, and you had the Houston event, and the Florida event. So, and now another London event. So
my understanding of this as well is that the guy they caught, I believe, was 18. He lived in a house in Sudbury where there was foster parents, and they caught him at Dover Port. Now, how did they get him so quick in the Dover Port? It's like they kind of knew he was going to be there. Would that be possible?
Well, it's like, you know, again, these so-called detectives and these so-called agency people, you know, after every event, they amazingly come up with a name. And people kind of dismiss it, or not in the alternative community, but outside, they just dismiss it. Where did they get that name from? And they always say the same thing. We've been tracking this person. Well, you weren't tracking it that well, so why aren't these people sacked? You know, they were tracking all these Muslims, again in inverted commas, because it's rubbish. And and nothing, and yet the events still take place. And then they pull a name out of the hat, and the people go, yeah, let's hang him, or let's execute him, or let's do this. But where's the questions about the people, the intelligence, which is, again, a misnomer in itself, who are supposed to be tracking these people?
Yeah.
They're always known to them. That's what they say. Every single event. This person was known to us. Well, it was known to you. And you've got phones now, you've got computers and monitors everywhere. So you can track anyone 24/7 now. So why isn't the crime rate going down?
Yeah.
You know, you only have to put in, you know, for those of you who watched the series, The Blacklist, you've seen all the computers and what they could pull up on the computer. They were telling you. So, cell phones are in a region. So if there's an event in a region, why don't you pull up all the cell phones that were in that region and then go and pull all the people in? Because it has to be one of them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But they're not doing that. Because these are staged events for at least two purposes. It's to put people in fear. It's to get people spinning because they don't know which event to focus on anymore. And we've all got less of an attention span than we used to have. And then the third thing is the donations, because they're running short of funds. So they're collecting more and more money off the people.
Yeah.
And what they're trying to do, in my opinion, is erase cash altogether. Then we're going to end up with a digital fake fresh air currency like Bitcoin or some rubbish.
Where does this fit in with the hierarchical structure of the elites if things are coming down? Is it a case, I mean, we said it to Winston Shroud, who's our guest on earlier, is it a case that the head has been taken off the snake and the middle managers are just running around and doing what they were told to do because they don't know anything else but to carry on doing it, even though there's no point in doing it?
It depends on which head of the snake you're cutting off.
Yeah.
Some in mythology, you cut one head off, another one comes forward.
Yeah.
And this is again factions games, and because we've had better intel and more people cottoning on to what's going on, they have to mix it up. They know we're gonna work it out. And a lot quicker than we used to.
Yeah.
You know, now it took years, 10 years at least, for the Americans to start accepting that 9/11 was an inside job. Now, events are happening, and within 10 hours it's being ripped apart.
Yeah, even less than that. I mean, people are putting videos up and then pulling holes on the video and showing stuff up with the advent of technology as well, where you can use the likes of Photoshop and certain cameras that you can zoom in and check stuff. And they're looking at the kind of storyline and what they're saying. And you're going, well, hang on, that's not possible because of X, Y, and Z. And look at this, look at that. So people are becoming their own investigators and checking it out themselves, which is obviously that's not what they want people to do. They want people to buy into the media. Plus, the other thing, Thomas, I don't know whether you heard, we mentioned it on last week's show. 4 newspapers in the UK are amalgamating into one, or the one owner of the 4, because there's been such a massive turn down in people buying newspapers, which is a good sign.
It depends who the one is. It's a good. They're losing readership.
Yeah.
CNN is running at about 20% of what listeners than it used to, and people are now turning it off. And the more they turn it off and find people who stand in real truth on the internet, which is diminishing sadly. because they have taken over alt media big time. There's so many of them. You know, I warned of this in March last year. Even I didn't think it went as far as it does, and there's a lot more still to be outed. You know, I find it sad. But this is the way these people operate. You know, and I've said it in previous shows. These people employ people 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to create situations that will mess with the people and keep them in control. We have to, as a collective, spend the same amount of time to stop it. And this woman with the red hair in London, surely someone knows who she is. Now, there's been an American actress name given out, and looking on her Twitter, there is certain links that she looks similar, but there's lots of people who can look similar. There's a couple of things on her Twitter that doesn't look too clever. And known at Kirkpatrick, but I don't want it to turn into a witch hunt if it's not her. We need to find out who that woman is.
Yeah.
And post her picture everywhere. Who is this person? And when we find out who it is, please don't use violence. What you do is you name and shame them in their own community.
Yeah.
So wherever they go, they're known as someone who created fake fear. And the same applies with the police brutality. You find out which cop is beating people to death, or shooting people to death, or tasering people unnecessarily, and shaming them out of the community. You get posters and put it in the community. This is what this person did. Same with bailiffs and foreclosures. Out them who they are. Please don't use violence. That's going down to their level.
Yeah.
You find that we all need to become real activists. We've all got information now. We've had disclosure. Otherwise, none of us would have a show to do. We've already had disclosure. It's what you're going to do with it. Are you just going to post it about what they're doing now? Or are we going to fight back and be activists and go, let's put this particular woman's picture out, find out who she is, and then name and shame her out of her own community. So where you go to shops and get them to not sell her anything to her, boycott her. It might make the other crisis actors, who are basically fear porn prostitutes, to quit it.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing.
There just seems to be an awful lot now. Again, they're trying to ramp up the fear porn with all these attempted or acting out terrorist attacks, again, just to put people in fear. It doesn't surprise me if they'll carry on. I mean, was it 5 this year alone in the UK? They had 5 of them, I think, and yeah, I mean. Yeah.
And 5 donation collections, all going to Red Cross and other cabal agents.
Yeah.
Shut these people down. You know, Red Cross missing again in Houston, staying in 5-star hotels. That's the public's money that they're spending.
What's that?
And
I was going to say, what's happening over there now with the hurricane? What's the aftermath? What's going on?
Well, it wasn't the catastrophic that they kept making it out of it, as I warned last Sunday. It's a bit unpleasant when you've got winds of even at 40 to 50 miles an hour through to 70. It's not pleasant when it's going for 12 hours, you know.
Yeah.
And your power goes out. And then, you know, depending on some of the regions of where you live, you could end up flooding. You know, of course, Florida, you know, I think the maximum height above sea level is around 70 feet. So, you know,
not very high.
You know, down the east and west coast of Florida is Barrier Islands. Well, that's where all high-end real estate is. Daytona, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, they're all on these sandbanks that are about 3 foot above sea level. Key West is another. So Key West is bound to flood if a big wave comes in, if it's only 3 foot above sea level.
Yeah.
So, and this is where they go, oh, look at that, and then they add in, oh, it's global warming, and then we have this bizarre thing where we have, well, it's not bizarre, where they create a situation where people can't afford houses, so they're in mobile homes, but basically what we would call caravans. Well, any wind and they're going flying.
Yeah.
And these are all lined up down the coast. And next minute the media shows all the mobile homes smashed to smithereens and using that to ramp up the fear.
Did you say
those homes shouldn't be in that region?
Did you say they used sorry, there's a fly going around the studio and we were just trying to get it. Did you say that they were using footage from an older hurricane or an older disaster in 2016?
Yeah. They were showing flooding that was not even from Miami. You know, this is what they do, and then people just don't. You just take it at face value. Well, we have to stop taking information at face value. It doesn't matter who's telling you it, whether it's me or Winston Shrout or Randy Morgan or anybody else. You have to start looking into it. You know, you can go click on a picture and do a back search. It tells you the original date. It gives it away.
But see, that to do that, as you know, Thomas, for half the population takes energy and takes time. And it's kind of, well, I can't really be bothered. So, and this is half the battle, is to get people to go and say, well, I'm not going to accept that at face value. I'm going to go off and do the research. And a lot of people kind of can't be bothered. And maybe, you know, that's the same with the TV. But I did hear some statistics regarding CNN. And they said that the audience, the majority of the audience that tune into CNN are mostly over 55.
Yeah. It's old habits, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's old habits. You know, but the biggest problem we're facing now is they're killing the homeless. And this has been evidenced that they refused, because it's made the news, it's made the local news, that they refused homeless enter into a shelter because they didn't have a fixed abode. Have you ever heard anything so lacking in compassion and bullshittery as that?
So
it just defies belief to me. So
the rumours that we've heard about the homeless being forced onto these
they're not rumours.
They're not rumours. So they are being forced onto the coaches or whatever and taken to Fema Camps. And because remember we mentioned about that homeless guy who was interviewed live by Fox News or CNN, and he said, well, I am a police officer, but he's homeless. And he said, I didn't go to the camps because of the Salvation Army and the homeless charity were caught killing people. And the reporter changed the subject straight away. Now, people were saying, well, how did he know the homeless man was Jake? Well, when you work in the media, you tend to go up and say, well, what's your name, chap, so I can come up and talk to you about what's going on. So that really puts that to bed. But the fact it was live, and somebody said, well, how come they haven't a 7-second delay? Well, not all the time do they have a 7-second delay. Tom Hanks was on a TV show, and he went into character, and he made a swear word, and then he apologised to the audience, and he said they should have had a 7-second delay. So they don't always use the 7-second delay. And of course, this guy being an ex-police officer and homeless, had just said what was on his mind, and your man kind of said, oh, better change the subject, obviously in his head. Now, how true that is, I don't know, but, you know, it kind of ties in what we're saying.
Well, I'll give you one example. The reason they've done that was people go, oh, you don't listen to Fox News or CNN. But they have to tell you what to do. They've told you, and it's up to you whether you listen. Now, I did a piece on the last show, Tomorrow Belongs to Me. It's about the Nazis. And first they came for the Neanderthals, the tribal people, and so on, and it went on for about 15, 20 minutes. And then he came for every American state, but it doesn't apply to me because I don't live in Oregon or I don't live in California. How long do we, the people, continue to ignore events going on, attacks on the people, and just keep ignoring it because I'm not a Muslim, or I'm not a Jew, or I'm not from California, or I'm not from America? How long do we carry on doing that and ignoring it?
Well, this is the thing, Thomas. We had a DJ over here called Jerry Ryan, and Jerry Ryan, he's dead now, but he said that Ireland was a country full of NIMBYs, and NIMBYs means not in my backyard. As long as I'm not being affected, then, and it doesn't affect me, then I'm not bothered. And that really ties into what you've said. It's the same thing.
I'm going to make an MP3 of that and see if I can get it up, because people need to grasp what's going on. You know, the stupidity is, it's not happening to me. It is.
Yeah.
Your water's being poisoned, the air's being poisoned, the food's being poisoned, the vaccines are being poisoned, the pharmaceuticals are being poisoned. Well, what are you telling me? You don't breathe air, you don't drink water, you don't take pills?
We've said this. We did the same kind of spin on this ages ago on the show, Steve, if you remember. We said, just an example, they came for the people who are from Sligo, and it didn't affect me because we're from Dublin. They came for the people from Waterford, but we're from Dublin, so we're fine. And by the time they come and picked us up, there was nobody there to support us or help us. Steve, do you want to say something?
No.
You look like you're going to say something there. But
you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
You know, you can't keep ignoring what's happening. You know, if somebody is having their home foreclosed on, you need to support those people and tell the bailiffs to go and do one. We don't want you in our community. Go away. If someone's kid is damaged by a vaccine, you need to go and support them, because one day it'll be one of your kids or one of your friends' kids who it happens to. This little bubble world is gone. It's all popped.
Yeah. And it's just to wake people up. Again, part of what we talked about yesterday in the conference was, you know, the waking up process and giving people the tools on how to wake people up if they wanted to do it, and the methods that we have formulated over the years to do it. So we will say to people, if you didn't make the BASIS conference yesterday, if you can get down to the Open Minds conference next year in March, and listen to our talk. As I say, the talk will be out on the BASIS conference anyway in the DVD, so people can watch it. And it might be different next year, because these things happen where we change the wording around, or we might add a few more slides and change a few things. So we're not going to say it's going to be identical, but the principles are the same. And it's frustrating, Thomas, when you want to do so much more, and myself and Steve want to do so much more, and we've said this to you before, but because of limitations in time and money, we can't. And that's where the elite, you know, that's where they gain, because they have all the resources and money and we don't.
They did. It's becoming more and more difficult. The reality is, if they had all the resources that we think they do, is none of us would be here now. And I don't say that lightly.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be any of these shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they had what they make out that they have and what the public believe that they have, none of us would be here now.
Yeah.
And so this is where the positive side comes in. And trying to wake people up after 2016 is a pointless exercise. They're gonna have to face it themselves. It's gonna be ugly, and people are gonna watch people completely lose it.
Why do you think that 2016 is the cutoff? Why do you say that?
Because of the 4-year loop. 2016 was basically 2012. They were going to do their fake ascension, which was harvesting and all the other stuff.
Okay.
It failed again.
So does that mean, so are we wasting our time trying to wake people up then?
You can always try, but it's a waste of energy. How much more information do they need? At which point are you not able to see what's right in front of your face?
Yeah. Well, as we've said, ignorance is a choice.
People ask for disclosure. You've already had it. You've been told about ETs. They've told there's 32 governments who have released all their ET files. Is that not disclosure? Why are you waiting for clowns on the TV to tell you what you already know?
Because I'll tell you why, Thomas, and this goes back to psychology. The fact is that people are so reliant on the television that if they tell a lie and it's on the TV, they'll believe it. And if they tell the truth and it's not on the TV, they won't believe it. That's how much people are conditioned to the TV.
The program. That's why it's called a program.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the problem. And that's why myself and Steve are so much more focused into the psychology of how the human mind works, rather than the bigger picture information, because, you can deal psychology being a kind of studied science, and, it's a day-to-day thing. You can see it, touch it, feel it, smell it. And people have their own experiences in certain things. And that's why we like that more so, because it's a day-to-day thing that we're dealing with. But it's amazing how, even when we had Neil Saunders on the show, and Neil said, isn't it funny that when you walk into a room and somebody's sitting there looking at the TV and you say to them, what's on the TV? And they go, nothing. But yet they're mesmerised by the TV still.
Yeah, that's the program.
Mm.
The agency people have been doing it for years.
Mm.
It's not recent. They've been doing it for nigh on 80 years minimum. They had in South America, they were testing on the kids down there, and all the kids there was thousands of kids that were programmed, and every time the Coke advert came on, all these kids would start losing it just by listening to the Coca-Cola advert on the television.
Mm.
It's like, and that's how we end up with the Manchurian candidates. It just takes one trigger. And this is why I avoid these super soldier people. It only takes one trigger to tip them over the edge, and they'll blow you away.
Yeah.
As nice as some of the individuals in those groups may be, or not, as the case, some of the cases may be, these people have all been in the programs, and they're all capable of becoming assassins.
Mm.
And so that's why I avoid those people altogether, because they're dangerous.
Yeah.
We have to be careful. The important thing, we're getting close to the end. The important thing that I want to mention is save your energy for yourself and the people who are already awake.
Mm.
Where we are the people that's going to drive it forward. If you are not in calm or in balance with yourself, how are you going to be able to be the beacons of hope for the ones who will completely lose it? And they will lose it.
Well, does it, two things there just to add. One is about being on the airplane and there's no oxygen. You put your mask on first before you help anybody else. And the other sign that if chaos happens in your local area, please make your way to the local conspiracy theorist, and they'll be able to help you.
Well, there was a report that came out last year. It was posted again recently, that they found that the conspiracy theorist, which is a misnomer in itself, if you read the etymology of conspiracy and theorist, you'll see who it is. It's telling you that the agency people.
Oh yeah,
that's where it came from.
Exactly in the 60s.
But they found that all those people who seek the truth out of the lies put forward
I'd rather say, as we said on
are more sane than the others.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'd rather say BS analyzer anyway, rather than conspiracy theorist. We have a quick question that we can fit in before we go. We have to finish up. Steve, you've got a quick question there.
Yeah,
for Thomas.
Shane was just wondering, can you ask Thomas if he thinks boycotting is our best way of fighting them?
Yes, on all levels. You know, you got Amazon. You know, it's just convenience that you use Amazon. These people are Nazis at the base. Is that who we want to keep buying off? No. Scrap them and go and buy from your local people. Don't be going to the big supermarkets. They're the same people.
Yeah,
go and buy off your...
But it can be hard, Thomas, when you don't have the money. That's the thing. You know, we'd all love to buy local, but local tends to be more expensive than the cheapy supermarkets. And if you have a limited budget, you know.
But how limited, you know, for the people who are really struggling, and I've struggled over the last few years because I lost everything, but it's where you make sacrifices, and a lot of our money, when you analyse and write down where your money's going, is going on technology, cable, telephones, and all this stuff. Or music and Netflix and all this. Do we really need all that? Or can we go and find it for free somewhere else?
Well,
and put the money into boycotting?
Well, we can safely say, we'll have to finish up now, but we can safely say, myself and Steve, we definitely are not putting our money in that way. Sure we aren't, Steve?
Nope.
They like Netflix and Sky TV and all that. Forget
Jesus,
all that. No. Anyway, Thomas, listen, thanks a lot for coming on. We have to finish up the show. A big thank you for jumping in, giving us that information, and again, just making people aware of what they need to do and what's going on. A big thank you for that. Pass it over to Steve. Steve's going to get your details there.
Well, if people don't know the details of Thomas's Truth, Honour and Integrity show by now, they need to be shot. But Thomas, do you want to throw the links out anyway for those who might be joining for the first time?
Yes, we got the Truth, Honour and Integrity group on Facebook, and we have the Facebook social media alternative without the privacy or data issues or the AI on MeWe, and you can send an email to truth.honour, honour is spelt the American way without the U, _integrity@gmail.com, and we can add you to the MeWe group. So.
Brilliant stuff. All right, Thomas, stay with us there for a minute. We've just gone off to a musical break, and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and peoplesinternetradio.com.
Yes, cool for cats, alright. Thomas Williams there from Truth, Honour and Integrity. Thomas is a live podcast every Thursday. If you sign up, you will get notification on a Friday, and you can download that podcast and listen to it at your leisure. I think it's normally about maybe 3 hours long, I think.
Probably about 2.5, 3 hours long, yeah.
Yeah, so well worth the download.
Lots of information there. Now, next week, fingers crossed, because it's kind of penciled in, it's not in pen. Our guest next week is Judge, Dr. Navan Chandra Naidu. Okay, he's a judge. So we're going to be talking about all legal stuff next week, by the sound of things anyway. Now, as I say, it's in pencil at the moment. It's not on pen, so we'll see what happens anyway. But that's going to be interesting, because we've got a few legal things to talk to him about, sovereignty and everything else, and we'll get his take on it. So that should be quite interesting. But that's if we're still here, by the way, because apparently, guess what?
What?
Next Saturday is the 23rd of September. It's the end of the world.
Sorry?
Yeah, it's the end of the world.
Oh,
next Saturday.
As we know it.
Yeah. So maybe think about the shopping on the Sunday, or not the Sunday, on the Friday. Whether we should get the shopping or not, you know.
Won't buy too much for the weekend, so.
This is another kind of, this could, we talk about this kind of timeline, this kind of, 2013 repeating in 2016 or 2017. Obviously, this is another repeat that's gone around, because we had this already, that September the 23rd. I mean, how many years have we had this? We had the Shemitah year, which was supposed to happen, and then we had, Planet X is coming in, and, around that time, and it's going to be the end of the world, and, Yeah, again. So, again, they're talking about it, and if you go on YouTube and type in September 23rd, and all the prophecies are there, and the Bible's brought out, and telling us all that we're all doom and gloomed and everything else. So, look, I'm not going to be, I can't tell you whether it's going to happen or not, because, you know, we're not there yet. But, as Stan Deo said, look, if it happens, you know, we have a transition and we go over to the spirit world and then that's it. So why worry about it? So I think we'll just take that tack and see what happens. And then if nothing happens, then we'll be on the radio show and we'll be there on Sunday and we'll be,
Of course, if it does happen, we'll have egg in our face, won't we?
Oh, well, we'll be dead.
Yeah.
We'll be dead. So, you know, people won't be able to come up and go, I told you so. So, but no, I'm just mentioning it out there for, you know, as a bit of the fear thing that's going around, you know. So we just mentioned the 23rd anyway. But again, we just like to give a mention to, I know we mentioned it during the show, next year, March, Steve's going to tell us all about it.
Okay.
It's not there.
It's not there.
You're going to have to add lib.
Oh my God.
Until I have it there, you're going to have to add lib.
Oh God. I have a piece of paper here in front of me. There are notes, and Alan does have notes printed out, I have to say, printed out.
Unscripted script.
The unscripted script, yeah. And normally when he says, Steve's going to tell us, I flip to the back page, and there it is. Okay.
I'm putting him on the spot now.
Right, I'm on the spot. Okay, not the basis. The Open Minds Conference in Dooley's Hotel next year. I think it's the 2nd to the 4th of March. It's going to be it's a 3-day event. Yes, he's holding up 3 fingers. It's going to be a 3-day event.
We're on the, this is like, what's that program?
I don't know.
We're on the 3rd.
What's your line, or who's,
yeah.
Right, we're on the 2nd.
Are we on the, no, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. So it's from the 2nd to the 4th, and we're on the 3rd, which is a Saturday.
Right, sorry, well, when you held up 3 fingers,
yeah,
and
on the 3 days, yeah, well, on the 3rd.
3, 2, 1. I figured 3 fingers were Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
okay.
And we're on the Saturday, which is
that one.
Same to you, buddy. Yeah, so that's it. It's in Dooley's Hotel. Tickets are available at the moment on Eventbrite. They just throw it into a search engine there. You will find the link is also on the front page of OYMradio.com. They're doing specials for overnight accommodation as well. You can go down on the day. Tickets are, I think for one day, I think the tickets are €48. Obviously for a 3-day event, I think that it goes up to 172, something like that. They are doing specials for the accommodation, as I say. So, you know, if you're going to go down and you fancy having a beer, you know, then, you know, you can book yourself in for the evening. But again, it's in March, the 2nd, 3rd and 4th, and we will be there on the Saturday. So be there.
We're on the Saturday morning.
Yes.
So just to let people know, so we'll try and, if you're down and you have a hangover, we'll try and wake people up before we get stuck into our show. But that's the news. Again, thank you for the people who are sending over links to us. Winston Shrout was an email. I'm sorry, I don't have the email, but it was actually a request from one of our listeners. Could we get him on? And he normally doesn't do Sundays, by the way, but he kindly said he'd do Sunday for us and come on our show, because we can't move the live show. You know, and we've been asked that a couple of times, and I say, I'm sorry, but we can't move the live show. People know we're on between 7 and 9, and that's just the way it is. And he kindly moved his time and said he'd come on and do the show. So, if you do have any suggestions for guests, and I know there's other people, we got approached yesterday by a handful of people saying, we'd love to come on your show and talk about X, Y, and Z. And we said, that's fine, send us an email, we'll have a look at your podcasts, and we'll take it from there, because we're always looking for kind of good information, good quality guests, as much as we can, and people who are kind of on the circuit as well, which kind of helps as well. So suggestions always send over, any information you have, send it over to us, and then we'll do our best. And any other events that are going on as well, not just events with just us in them, but if there's any other events going on as well, we're happy to announce, as long as it kind of ties in with what we do, and not like kind of events that are like completely off the...
Like a gardening show.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, something like that. I was thinking more of a Nazi kind of march or something through Dublin, you know. Yeah, we wouldn't be promoting things like that. But you know where we're going anyway with that. So anyway, we're going to pass off to PIR. For myself anyway, Alan James, have a great week. Take it easy. We're getting into the winter now. Make sure your car has the water in the rad and the old antifreeze. Make sure your tyres are okay, because the cold days are coming in. And I hate the winter. I am definitely a person that loves the summer, if you want to call it summer over here. Anyway, for myself, take it easy. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Okay, a minute to go. Yeah, if you're lucky enough to have a car, that is, we know, like, money is tight, and, you know. But anyway, look after yourselves. Have a great week. Vin is up next on People's Internet Radio. As Alan said, if you have any information or just want to drop us a line and just to say hi, that you listened in, or maybe you're a first-time listener, you know, do check out the podcast. We actually have, we only discussed it earlier on, we have an app as well. If you log on to the website, oymradio.com, there is an app there that you can download for your smartphone or your iPhone, or well, I think the smartphone, I don't think it works on the iPhone as of yet, but there is an app there. Which is kind of cool and funky. And if you fancy a t-shirt, log into the site again. There's a link there for the little shop. It's only a couple of things that we have here. Some t-shirts, old t-shirts that Alan just couldn't be bothered washing them, so he just sells them. Saves on the washing.
Exactly.
Anyway, look, good night everyone. Take care, and we'll catch you next week.